Okay, so today I'm going to give a short presentation on the appearance of the human embryo in the third week of development. Now, as you must have read in your textbooks, whether it's Langman or Keith Elmore, embryology, there is the appearance of the human embryo as a slipper-shaped trilaminar germ disc in the third week of development. Now, this appearance has been shown in the books through many different sections. Some are cross sections, some are longitudinal sections, and there's another view which is the dorsal view from above. So today I'm going to describe these different views of the trilaminar germ disc in the third week of development. So here is a very simple clay model, and this model is representing the trilaminar germ disc after the event of gastrulation has taken place. And it is showing us that there are the three germ layers, which are ectoderm in blue, mesoderm in orange, and endoderm in yellow. And these collectively form a disc-shaped structure which is called the trilaminar germ disc in third week of intrauterine life. So in some of the views which are described as the dorsal or superior view, we are looking at this embryo from above. So when you're looking at it from above, we describe it as having a cranial end and a caudal end. So the cranial end is broader and the caudal end, it is narrow. So if I turn this around, you can now appreciate the cranial end which is broader and the caudal end which is narrow, giving it the slipper-shaped appearance as has been mentioned already. Also, in the caudal aspect of the embryo, you can see in the midline there is a groove which is known as the primitive groove, and at the cranial end of this groove is a pit or depression called the primitive pit. So the primitive groove lies within the upturned edges which are the primitive streak, and the primitive pit, it lies within that elevation which is the primitive node. So the primitive streak and primitive node are present in the caudal region of the embryo, and here is the cranial region of the embryo. In most of the views, the dorsal or superior view, the appearance is like this. And now this is the appearance which is from, let's come back to this slipper-shaped embryo in the previous position, from above. So when you're looking at it from above, this is how it's going to appear. I'm going to draw this now. We're going to draw this and just show you the appearance of the embryo, which is the slipper-shaped appearance. And you can see that this broader end is the cranial end and the caudal end is the narrow one. And it is in the region of the caudal end where we have the primitive streak in the midline, and at its distal or cranial end we have the primitive pit. So this is the appearance of our trilaminar germ disc. Whenever we are mentioning which view is this? It's the dorsal view. Also you could say it's the superior view. Okay? Now, other than the dorsal or superior view, we have two sections which are shown in the textbooks. Now, in order to understand these two sections, here we are going to see that if we divide this trilaminar germ disc into right and left halves by a plane which passes through the midline, like so, then the section that we would get would be called the longitudinal or the sagittal section. So here is the plane of section dividing this trilaminar germ disc into left and right halves. And then what section are we going to get? I'm going to draw that over here. We're going to get the longitudinal section in which one end would be cranial and one end would be caudal. This is the ectoderm. Okay, beneath it is the mesoderm, and you know that the layer which is ventralmost is the endoderm. So this here is the endoderm. These are the three germ layers: ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. And the section that is visible over here is which section? This is our longitudinal or sagittal section. So these are the three layers, okay, and this is the cranial end, and this this here is the caudal end. And this section which you can see over here is the longitudinal section, or you could say it is the sagittal section, because it is dividing the trilaminar germ disc into a left part and a right part. The section was through the midline. Now let's look at the third section which has been mentioned in the books, and the third section is the one which is known as the cross section. This is at a right angle to the longitudinal section, meaning it goes like this through the trilaminar germ disc, dividing it into a cranial part and a caudal part. And the books, they have turned this embryo like so while taking the cross section. So when the cross section is taken, which is also known as the transfer section, the sort of diagram that you get would be like this, in which you would have the ectoderm above, the mesoderm between the ectoderm, and then the inferiormost layer, which is the endoderm. The notochord is in the midline. So you can see these three layers. Now this section is known as CS, meaning cross section, or it's also called the transverse section. So these are the three views which are representing the trilaminar germ disc. So although it might be a bit confusing if you're just looking at the books, if you have a model in front of you, you can see that this was representing the dorsal or superior view, and this longitudinal section was representing one in the midline, which divides the embryo into right and left equal halves, and the cross section is the section which is the transverse section, dividing the embryo into a cranial and caudal part. So these are the different sections which are visible. And also along with this, I would like to mention is that, you know, when we talk about the trilaminar germ disc, above is the cavity which is continuous with this ectoderm, known as the amniotic cavity, and below is the another cavity which is continuous with the endoderm, and it is known as the yolk sac cavity. So these are the two cavities which are present above and below the trilaminar germ disc. So above the trilaminar germ disc is the amniotic cavity, and below it is the yolk sac cavity. So we could simply say, it's easier to remember, that these are the two smaller balloons, meaning the amniotic cavity and the yolk sac cavity, within a single larger balloon. Now what is the larger balloon? That is the larger one is the chorionic cavity. So that is the chorionic cavity. This is the larger cavity within which you call the amniotic and yolk sac cavities. So that is chorionic cavity. And the chorionic cavity, you can see through the connecting stalk, this embryo, this trilaminar germ disc is connected or attached, or you could say suspended within the chorionic cavity by the help of this connecting stalk. So this is a little about the trilaminar germ disc, just to help us understand the views and also that simple concept of having the two smaller balloons within the larger balloon that is telling you about the trilaminar germ disc.